I came back unannounced to surprise my children for Christmas. I saw my son cry silently on the balcony, staring at the tree lights, his shoulders shaking with quiet sobs, while my daughter laughed with her in-laws, making a toast as if nothing was missing. As if someone wasn't absent. As if I didn't matter at all. Nobody noticed I had returned. Not one person turned their head. Not one person felt my presence in the doorway of my own home. But I understood everything at that moment. Everything became crystal clear. And before dawn broke over that cursed Christmas morning, I changed the locks and turned off the lights. My name is Maria Lewis. I'm 61 years old. And this is the true story of how one Christmas revealed the truth about my family, how the holiday I loved most became the day I saw my children's hearts laid bare, and how I found the strength to act when love turned to betrayal, when trust became manipulation, and when the family I had sacrificed everything for showed me exactly how little I meant to them. Before I tell you how it all happened, before I share the details of that night that changed everything, please like this video, subscribe for more true stories, and comment below where you're watching from. Because I know I'm not alone. I know there are other mothers out there, other fathers, other people who have given everything only to discover they were being used. And you need to hear this story. You need to know that standing up for yourself isn't cruel. It's necessary. Let me take you back to the beginning. Let me tell you who I was before that night, before Christmas became the day I learned the truth. My name is Maria Lewis, and I built my life from ashes and determination. 15 years ago, I lost my husband, Thomas. He was only 51 years old when his heart gave out one Tuesday morning in our kitchen. One moment he was drinking his coffee, reading the newspaper, complaining about the weather. The next moment, he was gone. Just gone. And I was left with 2 teenage children, a mortgage I could barely afford, and no idea how I was going to survive. But I didn't just survive. I fought. I clawed my way forward every single day. I took out a small business loan using our house as collateral, something that terrified me so much I couldn't sleep for months. I opened a small bakery in our neighborhood, working 18-hour days, my hands covered in flour and burns from the ovens. I learned everything from scratch, made every mistake you can imagine, failed more times than I succeeded. But slowly, painfully, beautifully, that little bakery grew. 1 bakery became 2. Then 3. Then 5 locations across the region. I built something real, something tangible, something that employed 43 people and fed thousands of families every week. I did that. Me. A widow who didn't know anything about business when I started. A woman who was told by bankers and advisors that I should just sell the house and move somewhere cheaper, live on the insurance money, let someone else take care of me. But I didn't want to be taken care of. I wanted to build. I wanted to show my children that when life knocks you down, when the world tells you to give up, you stand up and fight. You create something beautiful from the pain. And my children, God, my children were my entire world. They were the reason I kept going when I wanted to collapse. They were the reason I woke up at 4 a.m. to prep dough and work until midnight balancing books. Everything I did, every decision I made, was for Evan and Rachel. Evan, my sweet boy. He's 35 now, but he'll always be my sensitive, gentle son. Even as a teenager, even after his father died, Evan never hardened the way some boys do. He stayed soft, stayed kind, stayed close. When the other kids went away to college in different states, Evan chose a local university so he could help me with the bakery. He worked the counter on weekends. He delivered orders. He held me when I cried on the anniversary of Thomas's death. Evan understood loyalty. He understood family. He stayed nearby even as an adult, living just 20 minutes away, coming over for dinner twice a week, helping me plan expansion strategies for the business. He was my rock. My steady, quiet, reliable son who never asked for much, who never demanded attention, who just was there. Always there. And then there was Rachel. My daughter. My beautiful, ambitious, brilliant Rachel. She was always different from Evan. Where he was gentle, she was fierce. Where he was content, she was hungry. Rachel wanted more, always more. Bigger cities, better opportunities, wealthier friends. And I loved that about her. I encouraged it. I wanted my daughter to reach for the stars, to never settle, to build an empire if that's what she wanted. Rachel went to Boston for college and never really came back. Oh, she visited, of course. Holidays, birthdays, the occasional weekend. But Boston became her home. She built a career in marketing, climbed the corporate ladder with the same determination I had used to build my bakeries. I was proud of her. So incredibly proud. 3 years ago, Rachel married Connor, a man from a wealthy Boston family. The Hawthorns. Old money, the kind of family with vacation homes and trust funds and country club memberships going back generations. Connor seemed nice enough, though distant. Polite but cold. His parents, Richard and Catherine Hawthorne, were the same. They smiled with their mouths but not their eyes. They shook my hand but looked past me, as if I was just a quaint part of Rachel's past that she'd eventually outgrow. At first, I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself that I was just adjusting to sharing my daughter with another family. But then things started to change. Slowly at first, so slowly I didn't even notice it happening. Rachel's phone calls became shorter. Her visits became less frequent. When she did come home, Connor and his parents often came with her, turning our family dinners into formal, uncomfortable affairs where I felt like a guest in my own home. Rachel started talking differently, using words and phrases that sounded like they came from Catherine's mouth. She'd comment on my decorating choices, suggest I should update my wardrobe, hint that maybe I should think about transitioning into retirement and letting younger people take over the business. Evan noticed it too. He'd look at me across the table during these dinners, his eyes sad and confused, and I knew he felt it too. We were losing Rachel. Not to Boston, not to her career, but to the Hawthorns. To a family that viewed us as lesser than, as stepping stones Rachel needed to move past to fully join their world. But I held on to hope. I told myself it was just a phase, that Rachel was trying to impress her new family, that deep down she was still my daughter. I told myself that Christmas would fix everything. Christmas was our holiday. Every year since Thomas died, we'd spent Christmas together in my home. It was sacred. It was the one time Rachel always came back, always spent real time with us, always seemed like herself again. So when I had the opportunity to take a business trip to Europe last November, just 5 weeks before Christmas, I almost didn't go. The trip was important, a potential partnership with a French bakery supplier that could revolutionize my supply chain and cut costs by 30%. It was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. But it meant being gone for a month, maybe longer. Rachel convinced me to go. I remember the phone call so clearly now. She was enthusiastic, supportive, saying things like, "Mom, you've worked so hard for this, you deserve this opportunity, and don't worry about Christmas, we'll all be here when you get back, we'll make it extra special." Evan was hesitant but agreed that I should go. He promised to check on the house, to make sure everything was ready for Christmas when I returned. I should have known something was wrong. I should have felt it. But I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe my children had my best interests at heart. The trip to Europe was incredible at first. Paris, Lyon, small villages in Provence where I toured family bakeries that had been operating for 200 years. I was learning so much, seeing possibilities I'd never imagined. I called home every day for the first 2 weeks. Evan and I would video chat about the business. Rachel would text me photos of her day, little updates about her life. And then things shifted. Around week 3, Rachel's responses became slower. Shorter. When I'd call, she'd be busy. When I'd ask about Christmas plans, she'd be vague. "Oh, we're figuring it out, Mom. Don't worry about it." Evan started sounding strange too. Distracted. Worried. When I'd ask what was wrong, he'd say nothing, Mom. Everything's fine. Just tired. But it wasn't fine. I could feel it in my bones, that mother's intuition that knows when something is wrong with your children no matter how many miles separate you. Something was happening at home, and they weren't telling me. I tried to push the feeling aside. I tried to focus on my work, on the incredible opportunity in front of me. But the worry gnawed at me. At night, lying in my hotel room in France, I'd stare at the ceiling and wonder what I was missing. What weren't they telling me? Then, 3 days before I was supposed to fly home, I called Rachel and the call went straight to voicemail. I tried again an hour later. Voicemail. I texted her. No response. I called Evan. He answered, but he sounded panicked. "Mom, hi, everything's fine, I can't really talk right now." "Evan, what's going on? Is Rachel okay? Are you okay?" Yeah, we're fine. She's at the house, and, she's planning something for Christmas, and she made me promise not to ruin the surprise." Something in his voice told me he was lying. Not lying exactly, but hiding something. Protecting someone. And at that moment, I made a decision. I was coming home early. I was going to surprise them for Christmas. And I was going to figure out what the hell was going on in my own family. I didn't tell anyone. I changed my flight, packed my bags, and left France 2 days later. The flight home was torture. 13 hours of anxiety and worry and worst-case scenarios playing through my mind. Were they sick? Was someone dying? Was Rachel getting divorced? Was Evan in trouble? I landed at Logan International Airport on December 23 at 3 in the afternoon. I rented a car and started the 2-hour drive home. The whole way, I kept thinking about what I'd find. I imagined walking through the door and seeing my children's surprised, happy faces. I imagined hugs and laughter and explanations for all the strange behavior. I imagined it would all make sense, that I had been worrying over nothing. I got home just after 8 in the evening. It was dark, the kind of cold December night where your breath fogs in front of your face and the stars are sharp and bright overhead. And my house, my beautiful home that I had built and maintained and filled with love for 15 years, was glowing with Christmas lights. Every window was lit. The Christmas tree I had put up before leaving, the one I had decorated with Evan's help, twinkled through the front window. I could hear music and laughter from inside. My heart lifted for just a moment. They were celebrating. They were together. Maybe everything was okay after all. I parked on the street instead of in the driveway. I'm not sure why. Some instinct told me to be quiet, to observe before I announced myself. I grabbed my suitcase from the trunk and walked slowly up the front path. The door was unlocked. Of course it was. It was my house. My children had keys. My children belonged there. Or so I thought. I opened the door quietly, setting my suitcase just inside the entryway. The house smelled like pine and cinnamon and roasted turkey. Someone had cooked a feast. I could hear voices coming from the living room and dining room. Laughter. The clink of glasses. Christmas music playing softly. I stepped further inside, staying in the shadows of the hallway. And that's when I saw them. The living room was full of people. Rachel was there, wearing a beautiful red dress I'd never seen before, her hair done perfectly, her makeup flawless. Connor stood beside her, one arm around her waist, a champagne glass in his hand. And Richard and Catherine Hawthorne, Rachel's in-laws, were sitting on my couch. My couch. In my living room. Holding my wine glasses. Eating food from my kitchen. But I wasn't there. The matriarch of this family, the woman who owned this home, the mother whose holiday this was supposed to be, was not there. And nobody seemed to notice or care. Rachel was laughing at something Catherine said. Connor was refilling drinks. Richard was telling a story about their ski trip to Aspen. They looked comfortable. They looked like they belonged there. Like it was their home, not mine. And then I heard Catherine's voice, clear and sharp, cutting through the laughter. Rachel, darling, this house really is charming. Dated, of course, but charming. Have you thought any more about what we discussed? Rachel's smile flickered for just a second. Mother Catherine, it's Christmas. Can we not talk about this now? Oh, I'm not trying to ruin the festivities, Catherine continued, her voice dripping with false sweetness. I'm simply saying that it's something to consider. Your mother isn't getting any younger, and from what you've told us, she's been struggling to manage all those bakeries. Wouldn't it make more sense for the property to be in your name? You could make real decisions then, real changes. Perhaps even sell and invest the money properly. My blood ran cold. Sell my house? Transfer my property? What the hell was she talking about? Rachel looked uncomfortable. It's complicated, Mother Catherine. Mom built this business from nothing. She's very attached to it. Sentiment is lovely, dear, but it's not practical, Richard chimed in. And that brother of yours, Evan, he's far too emotional to handle any of this responsibly. You're the strong one. You're the one with business sense. Your mother will see reason eventually. Rachel didn't disagree. She didn't defend me. She didn't defend Evan. She just took a long sip of her champagne and changed the subject. I stood there in the hallway of my own home, invisible, listening to these people, these strangers who had somehow invaded my life, discussing taking everything I had built. And my daughter, my own daughter, was entertaining the conversation. But where was Evan? Where was my son? I moved through the hallway, past the living room, toward the glass doors that led to the back balcony. And that's when I saw him. Evan was sitting alone on the balcony on a cold December night. He was hunched over, his head in his hands, his shoulders shaking. He was crying. My son was crying alone in the dark while his sister hosted a party inside. I wanted to run to him. I wanted to throw open that door and hold him and demand to know what had happened. But something stopped me. Some instinct told me to wait, to watch, to understand the full picture before I acted. I moved closer to the balcony door, staying in the shadows. Through the glass, I could see Evan's face. He was staring at the Christmas tree lights visible through the window, tears streaming down his cheeks. His lips were moving, like he was talking to himself or praying. And then I heard Catherine's voice again, louder now, calling into the other room. Evan, darling, won't you join us? It's Christmas, after all. No need to be so gloomy. Evan didn't move. Didn't acknowledge her. Just kept staring at those lights, his whole body radiating pain. Rachel's voice responded, and the casual cruelty in her tone nearly broke me. Just leave him, Mother Catherine. He's been like this all evening. Evan gets too emotional about everything. He'll come around eventually. Too emotional. My son was too emotional. The son who had stayed by my side, who had helped me build my life, who had sacrificed his own opportunities to support his family, was too emotional. I heard Connor laugh. Maybe he just needs some time to adjust to the new family dynamics. Change is hard for some people. New family dynamics. What did that mean? What had they done? Catherine's voice again, lower now but still audible. Well, once Maria signs over the property, it won't matter what Evan thinks. Rachel will be in charge, and we can finally do something productive with all those quaint little bakeries. There's a developer in Boston who's been looking for exactly this kind of real estate portfolio. The land alone is worth a fortune. And there it was. The truth. Laid bare in my own living room while I stood like a ghost in the hallway. They wanted my business. They wanted my property. They wanted to take everything I had built, everything I had sacrificed for, everything that represented 15 years of backbreaking work and determination, and they wanted to sell it to developers. Strip it for parts. Destroy it for profit. And Rachel was part of it. My daughter, who I had loved and supported and encouraged to reach for the stars, was planning to take everything from me. The pain that hit me in that moment was worse than losing Thomas. Worse than those terrifying early days after his death when I didn't know how I'd survive. Because this wasn't a random tragedy. This wasn't fate or bad luck or circumstances beyond anyone's control. This was betrayal. This was my own child, my own flesh and blood, plotting against me. Using me. Seeing me not as a mother but as an obstacle to overcome, an asset to acquire. I looked at Evan again, still crying on that balcony, and I understood. He knew. He had known what they were planning, and it was destroying him. My loyal, gentle son was being crushed between his love for me and his inability to stop his sister. For a moment, I thought about walking into that living room. I thought about confronting them all right there, demanding answers, screaming at Rachel for her betrayal, throwing the Hawthorns out of my house. But something cold and clear settled over me instead. Something sharp and precise. A clarity I hadn't felt in years. No. I wasn't going to give them a dramatic scene. I wasn't going to let them see me hurt and angry and broken. I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of seeing me lose control. I was going to be smart. I was going to be strategic. I was going to protect what was mine and defend my son and teach my daughter a lesson about respect that she would never forget. I turned around and walked quietly back down the hallway. I picked up my suitcase, opened the front door as silently as I could, and stepped back out into the cold night air. Nobody noticed. Nobody heard me. Nobody knew I had been there at all. I sat in my rental car for a long time, my hands gripping the steering wheel, my breath coming in short, sharp gasps. The pain was overwhelming, threatening to drown me. But underneath the pain was something else. Something harder. Something forged in the same fire that had built my business from nothing. Determination. Pure, cold, absolute determination. They forgot who built this home. They forgot who created everything they were trying to take. They forgot that I had survived losing my husband, survived starting over with nothing, survived every setback and obstacle and person who told me I couldn't do it. They forgot that I was a fighter. And they were about to remember. I pulled out my phone and looked at the time. 8:45 in the evening. Too late to call most people, but not too late for what I needed to do. First, I called my lawyer, Jennifer, who had handled all my business affairs for the past decade. She answered on the third ring. Maria? Is everything okay? Aren't you supposed to be in France? I came home early, I said, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. And I need your help. Emergency help. Tonight. What happened? I need to secure my assets. All of them. The house, the businesses, everything. I need documents drawn up that protect my property from any transfer attempts, any claims, anything. And I need it done before morning. There was a pause. Jennifer was smart. She could hear the urgency in my voice, the barely controlled emotion. Maria, what's going on? I'll explain everything later. Right now I just need to know, can you do this? Can you help me protect everything I've built? Yes, she said immediately. Yes, I can. I'll need a few hours, but I can have emergency documents ready by midnight. We'll need to meet at my office. Can you do that? I'll be there. Next, I called Tom, my locksmith. I had used his services for all my bakery locations over the years. He was reliable, discreet, and most importantly, available for emergencies. Tom, it's Maria Lewis. I need you to change every lock on my house tonight. Every single one. And I need it done before sunrise. Mrs. Lewis? Is there a security issue? Should we call the police? No police. This is a family matter. But I need it done quickly and quietly. Can you do it? I can have a crew there by 5 a.m. But, should I ask if anyone's in the house right now? There are people inside, I said, my voice hard. But they're about to be guests who have overstayed their welcome. By the time they wake up, they'll find themselves locked out. Tom was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "You got it, Mrs. Lewis. 5 a.m. sharp. Consider it done." The final call was the hardest. I called Martin, who managed my utility accounts. We had gone to high school together, and he'd been one of the first people to support my business when I was starting out. "Martin, I need you to do something unusual for me. I need you to shut off the electricity to my house tomorrow morning at exactly 6 a.m. Maria? What? Why would you need that? Because I'm about to teach some people a lesson about taking things that don't belong to them. And I need them to wake up to darkness. This sounds, intense. Is everything okay? No, I said honestly. Everything is not okay. But it will be. Can you do this for me? Yeah, of course. 6 a.m. power cut. How long do you want it off? Until I call you and tell you otherwise. You got it. I hung up and sat in that car, surrounded by darkness, staring at my house where my daughter was laughing with people who wanted to destroy everything I had built. Where my son was crying alone because he felt powerless to stop it. They thought I was weak. They thought I was old and tired and ready to hand over everything. They thought sentiment and emotion made me vulnerable. They were about to learn they were wrong. I drove to Jennifer's office and spent the next 4 hours signing documents, reading legal language, making decisions that would protect everything I owned. Jennifer worked quickly, efficiently, without judgment. She created a trust structure that made my assets untouchable without my explicit consent. She drafted revocation documents that removed Rachel from any claims to the property. She prepared restraining orders in case the Hawthorns tried anything legal. "Maria," she said as we finished, "I have to ask. Are you sure about this? This is pretty extreme." "I'm sure," I said. "My daughter is trying to take my home and my business. She's working with her in-laws to pressure me into signing everything over so they can sell it for profit. She's treating her own brother like he's worthless. And she's doing it all while pretending to love me, while pretending this is all for Christmas, while smiling to my face." Jennifer nodded slowly. "Then these documents will protect you. But Maria, you should know, this will destroy your relationship with Rachel. Maybe permanently." "She destroyed it first," I said quietly. "I'm just making it official." I left Jennifer's office at 1 in the morning. I didn't go home. I couldn't bear to go back there while they were still inside, still celebrating, still plotting. Instead, I drove to one of my bakery locations and let myself in with my key. The bakery was dark and quiet, smelling of yeast and sugar and all the hours of work I had poured into making it successful. I sat in the back office, surrounded by order forms and inventory lists and photos of my staff smiling at various events. This was real. This was what I had built. These were people who depended on me, who respected me, who appreciated what I had created. And Rachel wanted to sell it. She wanted to tear it all down for a developer's check and her in-laws' approval. I won't lie to you. I cried that night in the bakery. I cried for the daughter I thought I had raised. I cried for the family I thought I had built. I cried for every sacrifice I had made believing my children would honor it. But by the time the sun started to rise on Christmas Eve morning, I was done crying. I was ready. Tom called me at 5:15. Mrs. Lewis, we're done. Every lock changed. New keys for you only. I left a set in your car as you requested. Thank you, Tom. At 5:30, I drove back to my house. The Christmas lights were off now. The house was dark and quiet. They were sleeping. Rachel and Connor and the Hawthorns were asleep in my guest rooms, comfortable and content, dreaming of the fortune they were going to make off my life's work. Evan's car was still parked on the street. My boy had stayed, even though being there was torturing him. I used my new keys to let myself in quietly. I moved through the house like a ghost, checking each room. Rachel and Connor were asleep in the master guest room. The Hawthorns had taken the second guest room. They had spread out, made themselves comfortable, and acted like they owned the place. I found Evan in his old childhood bedroom, the room I had kept exactly the same for him even though he had his own apartment. He was curled up on his side, his face still tear-stained, fully dressed, as if he had just collapsed there without the energy to change. I knelt beside his bed and gently touched his shoulder. He startled awake, his eyes widening when he saw me. "Mom," he whispered. "When did you?" "Shoo," I said softly. "I came home last night. I saw everything. I heard everything." His face crumpled. "Mom, I'm so sorry." I tried to stop her, I tried to make her see reason, but Rachel just kept saying it was for the best, that you'd understand eventually, that the Hawthorns knew what they were doing. I felt so useless, so weak. "Stop," I said firmly. "You are not weak. You are loyal and loving and honest. You are everything a son should be. And I am so proud of you. But I didn't protect you. You didn't have to, baby. Because I'm going to protect both of us. Now, I need you to get up, get your things, and come with me. Right now." Quietly. "What are you doing?" "I'm taking back my home." Evan got dressed quickly, grabbed his jacket, and followed me out of the house. As we walked to my car, I handed him the legal documents Jennifer had prepared. "Read these while we wait," I said. We sat in my car down the street, Evan reading through page after page of legal language, his eyes getting wider with each section. "Mom, this completely cuts Rachel out. This makes it impossible for her to make any claims to the property or the business. This basically disinherits her." "Yes," I said simply. "And this restraining order against the Hawthorns will prevent them from coming near me or my properties." Evan looked at me, and I could see he was struggling. He loved his sister, despite everything. "Mom, are you sure? This is so permanent." "Evan, they wanted to sell my bakeries to developers. They wanted to take this house, the house your father and I bought, the house where you and Rachel grew up, and they wanted to put me in some retirement situation while they profited from everything I built. Your sister knew this. She participated in this. She looked at you crying last night and called you too emotional. She chose them over us." His jaw tightened. "I know. I kept hoping she'd remember who we are. Who you are." "She will remember," I said. "Today. Right now." At exactly 6 a.m., the lights in the house went off. The Hawthorns had left several lamps on overnight, and I watched them all blink out at once. Martin had come through. We waited. It took about 15 minutes before I saw movement inside the house. Someone was awake, confused about why the power was out. I saw flashlight beams moving through the rooms. Then someone tried the front door. I heard the jiggle of a key that didn't work, then another try, then voices rising in confusion and frustration. The front door opened from the inside, and Rachel stepped out onto the porch in her pajamas, looking furious and confused. Connor appeared behind her, equally disheveled. "What the hell?" Rachel was saying. "Why aren't the keys working? Mom must have had the locks changed." "But why would she?" And then she saw me. Sitting in my car across the street. Watching. Her face went through several expressions in rapid succession. Confusion. Recognition. Realization. Fear. I got out of the car slowly, calmly. Evan got out beside me, standing tall for the first time in days. We walked up the front path together as Catherine and Richard stumbled out onto the porch, both looking outraged and bewildered. "Maria," Catherine said, her voice sharp. "Thank goodness you're here. Something's wrong with the house. The electricity is out and the locks don't work in." "The locks work perfectly," I said, my voice cold and clear. "They're just not keyed to you anymore." Rachel stepped forward. "Mom, when did you get back? Why didn't you tell us you were coming home?" "I got back last night," I said. "Around 8 p.m. I came into my house, my home, and found you hosting a lovely party with your in-laws. A party I apparently wasn't invited to. A party in my own home on Christmas Eve." Her face paled. "Mom, that was supposed to be a surprise. We were going to." "I heard the conversation, Rachel," I interrupted. "I heard every word. About transferring property. About Evan being too emotional. About selling my bakeries to developers. About convincing me to sign everything over. I heard all of it." The silence that followed was deafening. Connor looked at Rachel, his face guilty. Catherine and Richard at least had the decency to look caught. But Rachel, my daughter, just stood there, her mouth opening and closing, searching for words that wouldn't come. "You celebrated in my house without me," I continued, my voice steady despite the rage and pain coursing through me. "You planned to take what you didn't earn, what I built with my own hands from nothing. You plotted behind my back with people who see me as nothing more than an asset to liquidate. You looked at your brother crying on that balcony and dismissed him as too emotional. Well, let me tell you something about emotion, Rachel. Emotion is what built this family. Emotion is what kept me going when your father died. Emotion is what made me sacrifice everything to give you opportunities one never had. And you repaid that emotion with betrayal." "Mom, please, you don't understand," Rachel started. "I understand perfectly," I said, pulling the legal documents from my bag. "These papers make my understanding very official. This house is mine, protected in a trust that you have no access to. My business is mine, secured against any transfer attempts. You have been legally removed from any claims to my property or assets. And if the Hawthorns attempt any legal action against me, they will be met with restraining orders and harassment charges." Catherine's face turned red. "This is ridiculous. We were trying to help you. Rachel was worried about your ability to manage everything." "Then Rachel should have talked to me," I said sharply. "Like a daughter. Like family. Instead, she talked about me. Behind my back. In my own home. While I was in another country trusting her to respect what I'd built." Richard stepped forward, his voice taking on that condescending tone wealthy men use when they think they can intimidate people. "Mrs. Lewis, I think you're overreacting." Rachel was simply. "Get off my property," I said, cutting him off. "All three of you. Hawthorns. You are not welcome here. You are not welcome near me. And if I find out you've tried to contact me or influence my daughter against me again, I will make sure every bakery I supply in Boston knows exactly what kind of people you are. You can't throw us out, Catherine sputtered. Our things are inside. Your things will be packed and shipped to you, I said. Now get off my property before I call the police for trespassing. They looked at Rachel, waiting for her to defend them, to do something. But Rachel was staring at me with an expression I'd never seen on her face before. Something between shock and shame and disbelief. Connor, at least, had the sense to take his parents' arms and start walking toward their car. Come on, he muttered. Let's just go. They left. Got in their expensive sedan and drove away without another word. And then it was just me and Rachel on the front porch of my home, Evan standing quietly beside me. Mom, Rachel said, her voice breaking. Mom, please. Let me explain. Explain what? I asked. Explain how you justified betraying your mother? Explain how the Hawthorns convinced you I was disposable? Explain how you looked at your brother's pain and decided it didn't matter? It wasn't like that. Then what was it like, Rachel? I demanded, all the anger and hurt finally breaking through my calm facade. Tell me. What was it like? Because from where I stood last night, invisible in the hallway of my own home, it looked like my daughter had decided her wealthy in-laws' approval was more important than her family. It looked like you were willing to destroy everything I built just to fit into their world. I thought I was helping, she cried. I thought the business was too much for you, that you were stressed and struggling, and the Hawthorns had all these ideas about investment and growth, and I just wanted you to be able to relax, to not have to work so hard. By taking away my life's work? I asked, incredulous. By selling the bakeries I built from nothing? By putting me out to pasture like some old horse that's outlived its usefulness? No. That's not, I didn't mean. Rachel was crying now, mascara running down her face, her perfect composure completely shattered. You didn't mean what? I pressed. You didn't mean to let your in-laws talk about me like I was incompetent? You didn't mean to discuss selling my property without my knowledge? You didn't mean to dismiss your brother when he tried to stand up for me? Which part didn't you mean, Rachel? Because I heard all of it. Every single word. She covered her face with her hands, her whole body shaking. I'm sorry. Mom, I'm so sorry. I got caught up in their world, in trying to impress them, in trying to prove I belonged there. And they made it sound so reasonable, so smart, so like I was being a good daughter by planning for your future. My future? I laughed, bitter and sharp. Rachel, I'm 61 years old, not 91. I run a successful business that employs over 40 people. I'm healthy, sharp, and capable. I don't need you or anyone else to plan my future. I don't need to be managed or handled or convinced to step aside. What I needed was for my daughter to respect me. To trust me. To talk to me like an equal instead of plotting behind my back like I was the enemy. You're right, she whispered. You're right about all of it. I was wrong. I was so wrong. Yes, you were, I said, my voice softening slightly but still firm. You were wrong, and you hurt me deeper than I thought was possible. Deeper than losing your father hurt me, because at least that wasn't a choice. This was a choice, Rachel. You chose the Hawthorns over your own mother. Over your brother. Over everything we built as a family. She looked up at me, her eyes red and swollen. What can I do? How can I fix this? You can't, I said simply. Not today. Not with words or tears or apologies. You broke something fundamental between us, Rachel. You broke trust. And trust, once shattered, takes years to rebuild. If it can be rebuilt at all. So that's it? She asked, her voice small and broken. You're just cutting me out? Forever? I looked at my daughter, really looked at her. I saw the little girl who used to climb into my lap and ask me to read her stories. I saw the teenager who came to me crying about her first heartbreak. I saw the young woman who called me from college, homesick and scared, needing her mother's reassurance. And I saw the person she had become, someone who valued wealth and status over family, who could be influenced to betray the people who loved her most. "I'm not cutting you out," I said finally. "But I'm not pretending this didn't happen either. You want a relationship with me, Rachel? You're going to have to earn it back. Not with grand gestures or expensive gifts or empty promises. With time. With consistency. With actual change. You need to figure out who you are without the hawthorns whispering in your ear. You need to decide what matters to you. Family or status. Love or money. Us or them. I choose family," she said immediately. "I choose you." "Saying it is easy," I replied. "Proving it is hard. And I need to see proof, Rachel. Real, sustained proof that you understand what you did and why it was wrong. I need to see that you respect me, that you respect your brother, that you value what we built together more than what the hawthorns can offer you." "How long?" she asked. "How long until you forgive me?" "I don't know," I said honestly. "Maybe months. Maybe years. Maybe never. That's not up to me to decide right now. That's something that will be determined by your actions going forward. What I do know is this: you are not welcome in this house right now. You are not welcome at my business. You are not part of my daily life until I can trust you again. And that trust has to be earned." Rachel's face crumpled. "Mom, please. It's Christmas." "Yes, it is," I said quietly. "It's Christmas. The holiday we always spent together as a family. The holiday that was supposed to be sacred. And you used it as an opportunity to conspire against me with your in-laws. So no, Rachel, Christmas doesn't fix this. Christmas doesn't erase what you did. Christmas is actually what makes it worse." She stood there on the porch, crying, looking lost and young and devastated. Part of me, the part that was still her mother, wanted to comfort her. I wanted to hold her and tell her it would all be okay. But the larger part of me, the part that had been betrayed and disrespected and plotted against, stayed firm. "You should go," I said. "Go back to Boston. Go back to your husband and figure out what kind of life you want to build. And if you decide you want your family to be part of that life, then you'll do the work required to make that possible. But until then, I need space." "We both do." Connor had pulled their car around by this point, looking uncomfortable and guilty. He got out and approached carefully. "Mrs. Lewis," he said quietly. "I want you to know I'm sorry. My parents, they pushed this, they convinced Rachel it was the right thing, and I should have stopped it. I should have protected you both." "You should have," I agreed. "But you didn't. And now you have to live with that choice, just like Rachel does." He nodded, accepting the judgment. He gently took Rachel's arm. "Come on, honey. Let's go." Rachel looked at me one more time, her eyes pleading. "Mom, I love you. I know I messed up, but I love you." "I love you too," I said, and I meant it. "But love isn't enough right now. Love without respect is hollow. And you need to learn what respect means." They got in their car and drove away. I watched until they turned the corner and disappeared from sight. Then I let out a long, shaky breath and felt Evan's hand on my shoulder. "That was brutal," he said softly. "It had to be," I replied. She needed to understand the consequences of her choices. They all did. "What about me?" Evan asked. "What happens now with us?" I turned to face my son, this gentle, loyal man who had stood by me through everything. "What happens now is we go inside, I turn the power back on, and we make breakfast together." What happens now is we remember what family actually means. What happens now is I tell you how proud I am of you, how much I appreciate your loyalty, and how much I trust you. Because you earned that trust, Evan. You've been earning it your whole life. His eyes filled with tears. I felt so weak, Mom. Watching them plan all that and not being able to stop it. You weren't weak, I said firmly. You were outnumbered and manipulated and put in an impossible position. But you never betrayed me. You never joined them. You sat on that balcony crying because what they were doing hurt you, hurt your sense of what family should be. That's not a weakness, baby. That's integrity. We went inside together. I called Martin and had him turn the power back on. Then Evan and I spent the rest of Christmas Eve cleaning the house, removing every trace of the Hawthorns' presence, reclaiming the space as ours. We packed up the Hawthorns' belongings methodically, coldly. Their expensive luggage, Catherine's jewelry case, Richard's golf clubs. All of it went into boxes that I had a courier service pick up and ship to their Boston address. I didn't want anything of theirs in my home. While we worked, Evan and I talked. Really talked. He told me everything that had happened while I was in Europe. Rachel had arrived with Connor and his parents 2 weeks before Christmas, saying they wanted to spend the whole holiday season as a family. How the Hawthorns had immediately started making comments about the house being dated, about the business being too much for one person to handle. How Rachel had slowly started agreeing with them, parroting their ideas back as if they were her own insights. She changed, Evan said as we wiped down the guest room. Or maybe she just showed who she'd become. She started talking differently, acting differently. She'd correct the way I said things, tell me I needed to be more ambitious, more professional. Like suddenly everything about our life, about the way we were raised, wasn't good enough. The Hawthorns made her feel like she had to choose, I said. Between her old life and her new one. Between us and them. And she chose wrong. Do you think she'll come back? Evan asked. Really come back, I mean. Not just apologize but actually change? I don't know, I admitted. I hope so. But that's up to her now. I've done everything I can do. I've raised her, loved her, given her every opportunity. If she chooses status and wealth over family, then that's her decision to live with. We finished cleaning just as the sun started to set on Christmas Eve. The house looked like ours again, felt like ours again. Evan and I ordered Chinese food, something we hadn't done in years, and we ate it sitting on the floor in front of the Christmas tree, laughing at old memories and crying over hard truths. This is the strangest Christmas Eve I've ever had, Evan said, picking at his low mane. Mine too, I agreed. But also maybe the most honest one. That night, Evan stayed in his old room, and I slept in my own bed, in my own house, protected by new locks and legal documents and the knowledge that I had stood up for myself. I had fought back. I had refused to be a victim of my own daughter's betrayal. I won't pretend it didn't hurt. I won't pretend I didn't cry myself to sleep that night. But underneath the pain was something solid and unshakable, self-respect. I had drawn a line. I had said no more. And I had meant it. Christmas morning was quiet. Evan and I made pancakes and opened the few presents we had for each other. Simple things. A book I'd bought him in France. A new watch he'd gotten me before I left for Europe. We didn't talk about Rachel or the Hawthorns. We just existed together, two people who understood what loyalty meant. Around noon, my phone started ringing. Rachel's number. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again. Voicemail again. Then text messages started coming through. Mom, please answer. I need to talk to you. Mom, I'm so sorry. Please give me a chance to explain more. Mom, Connor and I had a huge fight. His parents are furious with me. Everything is falling apart. I read each message but didn't respond. Evan watched me, concerned. Are you going to answer her? Not today, I said. Today is for us. For rebuilding what matters. Rachel can wait. And she did wait. Days passed. The messages kept coming, growing more desperate, more genuine, more raw. Rachel told me she had confronted the Hawthorns about their behavior, and had demanded they apologize to me. When they refused, she told them she wouldn't be spending time with them anymore. Connor supported her, despite his parents' anger. She told me she had started therapy, that she was trying to understand how she had let herself be so influenced, how she had lost sight of what mattered. She told me about the fights with Catherine, about the coldness from Richard, about feeling like she was finally waking up from some kind of trance. I read every message. But I didn't respond. Not yet. The weeks after Christmas were hard. I threw myself into work, visiting each of my bakery locations, meeting with staff, reviewing finances. The business was thriving. My team was strong. Everything I had built was solid and successful and real. The Hawthorns had been wrong. I didn't need their help. I didn't need their management. I didn't need anything from them except to stay away from what was mine. Evan started taking on more responsibilities at the business. He had always helped, but now he stepped up in new ways. He started meeting with suppliers, handling some of the financial planning, bringing fresh ideas to the table. I saw him grow stronger, more confident, more sure of himself. The shadow the Hawthorns had cast over him lifted, and my son emerged into his own power. I think I want to do this full time, he told me one day in late January. Really be your partner in the business. If you'll have me. Evan, I would love nothing more, I said. You've earned it. You've always earned it. We started making plans for the future of the bakeries. Expansion ideas. New product lines. Training programs for staff. It was exciting and energizing and reminded me why I loved this work so much. I wasn't too old or too tired or anything. I was exactly where I needed to be, doing exactly what I was meant to do. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't miss Rachel. I miss my daughter every single day. I missed the person she used to be before the Hawthorns got their hooks in her. I missed the closeness we used to have. But I didn't miss the person she had become. And I refused to let her back into my life until I was sure that person was gone. In February, Rachel sent me a different kind of message. It was long, detailed, and brutally honest. Mom, I've been in therapy for 6 weeks now. My therapist helped me see something I didn't want to face. I was ashamed of where I came from. Not consciously, not in a way I would ever admit out loud, but deep down, I felt like the bakeries were small, like our family was ordinary, like I needed to become someone different to matter. The Hawthorns fed into that. They made me feel special and important, but only if I distanced myself from you and Evan. Only if I agreed that everything about my old life needed to be improved or changed or managed. I let them make me believe that your success was quaint instead of remarkable. That your strength was stubbornness instead of determination. I let them make me ashamed of the woman who sacrificed everything to give me opportunities. I let them make me forget that you built an empire from grief and grit while I just married into wealth I didn't earn. I don't know if you can ever forgive me. I'm not sure I can forgive myself. But I need you to know that I see it now. I see what I did. I see what I became. And I'm working every day to be better. To be the daughter you deserved all along. I read that message 3 times. Then I cried for an hour. Then I called Jennifer, my lawyer. I want to see Rachel, I said. But on my terms. Neutral ground. With boundaries. Are you sure you're ready? Jennifer asked. No, I admitted. But I think it's time anyway. I arranged to meet Rachel at a small cafe halfway between my town and Boston. It was early March, the kind of gray, chilly day where spring feels impossible and winter feels eternal. I got there early and sat by the window, watching people pass by, my heart beating too fast in my chest. When Rachel walked in, I almost didn't recognize her. She looked thinner, paler, older somehow. The polished confidence she'd worn like armor was gone. She looked like my daughter again. Lost and scared and hoping for grace. She sat down across from me, her hands shaking as she wrapped them around a coffee cup. "Thank you for meeting me," she said softly. "I wasn't sure you would." "I wasn't sure I would either," I replied honestly. We sat in silence for a moment. Then Rachel took a deep breath and started talking. She told me everything. About how inadequate she had felt around the Hawthorns, how she had tried so hard to fit into their world. About how Catherine had slowly planted seeds of doubt, making comments about my age, my business acumen, my ability to manage everything alone. About how those comments had wormed their way into Rachel's head until she started believing them. She told me about the shame she felt about her background, about growing up in a regular house in a regular town, about having a mother who worked with her hands instead of playing tennis at country clubs. She told me about how the Hawthorns had made her feel like she could leave all that behind, become someone new, someone better. "But the cost was you," she said, tears streaming down her face. "The cost was Evan. The cost was everything real I'd ever had. And I was willing to pay it because I was so desperate to belong in a world that never actually wanted me. They wanted a version of me that had no past, no family, no roots. They wanted me to be ashamed of you. And I was. God, Mom, I was ashamed of the most amazing woman I've ever known, and I hate myself for it. I listened to all of it. Every word. Every confession. Every expression of guilt and regret and self-loathing. And when she was done, when she had nothing left to say, I spoke. "Thank you for being honest," I said. "Thank you for not making excuses or blaming everyone else. Thank you for owning what you did." "Does that mean you forgive me?" she asked hopefully. "It means I'm willing to start the process of forgiveness," I said carefully. "But Rachel, you need to understand something. What you did broke my heart. It broke Evan's heart. It shattered my trust in you completely. And that kind of damage doesn't heal with one honest conversation. It heals with time and consistent action and proof that you've actually changed." "I'll do whatever it takes," she said quickly. "Anything you need. Any boundaries you set. Just please, please don't shut me out forever." "I'm not shutting you out," I said. "But I'm also not letting you all the way back in. Not yet. Here's what I need from you, Rachel. I need you to keep working on yourself. Keep going to therapy. Keep figuring out who you are separate from the Hawthorns, separate from Connor, separate from me. I need you to rebuild your relationship with Evan, because he's the one you hurt almost as much as you hurt me. I need you to show up consistently, not just when it's convenient or when you want something. I need to see that this change is real and lasting, not just remorse that will fade when things get comfortable again." "I can do that," she said. "I will do that. And there's one more thing," I said, my voice firm. "You are never, ever to discuss my business or my property or my finances with the Hawthorns again. Ever. If they bring it up, you shut it down. If they ask questions, you tell them it's none of their business. If they try to influence you again, you walk away. Because if I find out you've let them manipulate you again, if I find out you've given them any information or access or opportunity to interfere in my life, we're done. Permanently. Do you understand?" "I understand," she said, her voice shaking. "The Hawthorns and I, we're not close anymore. After everything that happened, after I confronted them about what they did, they basically cut me off. Catherine won't speak to me. Richard acts like I betrayed them. Connor's relationship with his parents is strained because he stood by me. We're kind of on our own now. Good, I said, and I meant it. You don't need people like that in your life. You never did. We talked for another hour. It wasn't comfortable or easy, but it was real. More real than conversations we'd had in years. When we finally said goodbye, I didn't hug her. It felt too soon for that. But I did touch her hand briefly and say, "Keep working on yourself, Rachel. And we'll see where we go from here." She nodded, crying, grateful for even that small gesture of hope. Over the next few months, Rachel did exactly what I asked. She showed up. She went to therapy every week and did the hard work of understanding why she had been so vulnerable to the Hawthorns' influence. She started meeting with Evan for coffee, awkward at first, then slowly rebuilding their sibling bond. She asked about the business not in a managing way but in a genuine, supportive way. She respected the boundaries I set. And slowly, painfully, carefully, we started to heal. It wasn't quick. It wasn't a dramatic reconciliation with tears and hugs and everything going back to normal. It was a small moment. A phone call where we talked about something other than betrayal. A text message asking how my day was. A birthday card with a handwritten note that felt sincere. By the time summer rolled around, I agreed to have dinner with Rachel and Connor at their apartment in Boston. It was strange being in their space, seeing how they lived, meeting them on their territory. But it was also important. I needed to see who they were together, away from the influence of Connor's parents. What I saw surprised me. They were struggling financially. Apparently, cutting ties with the Hawthorns meant cutting ties with their financial support too. Rachel had taken a pay cut to move to a smaller company with better values. Connor had started his own consulting business after leaving his father's firm. They were working hard, living modestly, building something of their own. "We're figuring it out," Rachel said as she served a simple pasta dinner she'd made herself. "It's not fancy, but it's ours." "I'm proud of you," I said, and I realized I meant it. "This is real. This is honest." Connor spoke up, nervous but sincere. "Mrs. Lewis, I want you to know that I've apologized to my parents for my role in what happened at Christmas. They didn't accept the apology, but I needed to say it anyway. What we did was wrong. What they encouraged was wrong. And I'm committed to making sure Rachel and I build our life based on our values, not theirs. That's all I've ever wanted for her," I said. "Someone who supports her being her best self, not someone who tries to change her into something she's not." It was a good evening. Not perfect, not healed, but good. A step forward. Evan and Rachel's relationship took longer to repair. He was more hurt than I was in some ways because he had been there, had witnessed every moment of her transformation into someone unrecognizable. But Rachel was patient. She kept showing up. She kept apologizing. She kept proving through action that she had changed. By fall, almost a year after that terrible Christmas, Evan finally told her he forgave her. "I don't forget," he said when he told me about their conversation. "I won't ever forget what that felt like, sitting on that balcony listening to them talk about us like we were obstacles. But I believe she's different now. I believe she's learned something real." "That's all we can ask for," I said. That Christmas, our second Christmas since the betrayal, I invited Rachel and Connor to my home for dinner. Just dinner. Just a few hours. Nothing overnight, nothing elaborate, nothing that assumed we were fully healed. They arrived with flowers and a genuine humility that would have been impossible a year before. We ate together, the four of us, and talked about real things. The business. Their jobs. Plans for the future. It was careful and gentle, but it was family. After dinner, as Rachel and I were cleaning up in the kitchen, she stopped and looked at me with tears in her eyes. "Mom, I know I don't get to say this easily, and I know it doesn't fix anything, but I need you to know how sorry I am. Not just for what I did, but for who I became. I look back at that person from last Christmas and I don't recognize her. I was so lost. I know you're sorry, I said. And I've forgiven you, Rachel. But I need you to understand that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean everything goes back to how it was. We're building something new now. Something different. Something based on who we actually are, not who we pretended to be. I know, she said. And I'm grateful for even this. For being allowed back at all. You're my daughter, I said simply. I never stopped loving you, even when I couldn't trust you. But love and trust are different things. You broke the trust, and you've worked hard to earn it back. But it's still fragile, Rachel. It's still healing. So we move forward carefully. I will, she promised. I'll spend the rest of my life proving I deserve your trust again. That night, after they left, Evan and I sat by the Christmas tree, the same tree that had been glowing through the windows that terrible night a year before. It's different this time, Evan observed. The house feels lighter. Because it's honest, I said. Last year was all pretense and lies and people pretending to be things they weren't. This year is real. Harder maybe, but real. Do you think you'll ever fully trust Rachel again? He asked. I don't know, I admitted. Maybe. I hope so. But that's something only time will tell. What I do know is this, I'm not the same person I was before that Christmas. I'm stronger. More clear about my boundaries. More willing to protect what's mine. And I'm never going to let anyone, not even my own children, make me feel like I have to give up what I built to keep their love. You taught me that, Evan said. You taught me that standing up for yourself isn't selfish. It's necessary. And you taught me that loyalty matters, I replied. That some people will stand by you even when it's hard. You could have sided with Rachel. You could have tried to convince me to just let it go, to keep the peace. But you didn't. You stood with me. And I'll never forget that. It's been 2 years now since that Christmas. 2 years since I came home unannounced and discovered the truth about my family. 2 years since I changed the locks and turned off the lights and drew a line that couldn't be uncrossed. Rachel and I talk regularly now. She's still in therapy. She and Connor are still building their own life, independent of his parents' money and influence. She's still working to prove herself, still showing up consistently, still respecting the boundaries I've set. And slowly, carefully, our relationship is healing. The Hawthorns never apologized. I heard through Connor that they still believe they were right, that I overreacted, that I'm a stubborn woman who refused good advice. I don't care what they think. They have no power over me, no access to my life, no ability to influence my choices. They're irrelevant. Evan is thriving. He's my full partner in the business now, bringing energy and ideas I didn't even know we needed. He's confident, strong, sure of his value. That scared, crying man on the balcony is still part of him, but now he's integrated that sensitivity with a backbone of steel. He's remarkable, and I tell him so as often as I can. As for me, I'm 63 years old now. My bakeries are more successful than ever. I wake up every morning grateful for the life I built, the family I've fought to protect, and the strength I discovered in myself that terrible Christmas Eve. That Christmas, I realized something fundamental about love and family and boundaries. I realized that love without boundaries becomes a weakness. That forgiveness without accountability is meaningless. That family isn't about blood or obligation, it's about respect and loyalty and showing up for each other even when it's hard. I learned that protecting what's yours isn't selfish, it's necessary. That standing up to people you love when they're wrong isn't cruel, it's honest. That sometimes the most loving thing you can do is turn off the lights, not out of hate, but out of truth. I learned that I am stronger than I ever knew. That the same determination that built my business from nothing could protect it from people who wanted to destroy it. That the same love that raised my children could discipline them when they lost their way. And I learned that sometimes, the people who hurt you most are the ones you need to love from a distance until they earn their way back. Not because you don't love them, but because you love yourself enough to demand respect. That Christmas changed everything. It broke my family apart and forced us to rebuild from honest foundations. It hurt more than anything I've ever experienced. And it taught me lessons I desperately needed to learn. If you're watching this and you've experienced something similar, if someone you love has betrayed your trust, if you've had to draw boundaries with family members who took advantage of your love, I want you to know this: you are not wrong. You are not cruel. You are not overreacting. Protecting yourself, your work, your life from people who would take advantage of you is not just okay, it's necessary. It's survival. It's self-respect. And sometimes, it's the most loving thing you can do for everyone involved. Because here's the truth they don't tell you: sometimes families need to break in order to heal. Sometimes relationships need to end their old form in order to become something new and healthier. Sometimes love means saying no. Sometimes forgiveness requires time and proof and action, not just words. I didn't turn off those lights because I'm cruel. I did it because I'm strong. Because I built something real and I wasn't going to let anyone, not even my own daughter, take it from me without a fight. Because I knew that allowing the betrayal to continue would have destroyed not just me, but Evan, and eventually Rachel too. That Christmas, standing in the cold dawn while my daughter realized what she had lost, I wasn't taking revenge. I was taking my power back. I was reminding everyone, including myself, that I mattered. That my work mattered. That my life mattered. And you matter too. Whoever you are, wherever you're watching this from, whatever betrayal you've faced from people you loved, you matter. Your boundaries matter. Your self-respect matters. And you have the right to protect what you've built, even from family. If this story moved you, if it resonated with something in your own life, please like this video, subscribe for more true stories, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Tell me your story if you feel comfortable. Because somewhere tonight, another mother is discovering her truth. Another father is realizing he's been taken advantage of. Another person is wondering if they have the strength to stand up to a family who's betrayed them. And they need to know they're not alone. They need to know that setting boundaries isn't cruelty, it's courage. They need to know that standing up for yourself doesn't make you the villain, it makes you strong. They need to know that sometimes, love means turning off the lights. Not to hurt anyone, but to wake everyone up to the truth. To force everyone to face what's real instead of hiding in comfortable lies. That Christmas broke me open. But it also made me whole. It destroyed the family I thought I had and forced us to build the family we actually needed. It was the hardest thing I've ever lived through. And I wouldn't change it. Because now I know who I am. I know what I'm capable of. I know that I can lose everything and build it back again. I know that I can be betrayed by the people I love most and survive it. I know that I can set boundaries that feel impossible and hold them even when it hurts. I know that I am Maria Lewis. 63 years old. Widow. Entrepreneur. Mother. Fighter. Survivor. A woman who turned off the lights on Christmas morning not because she stopped loving her daughter, but because she finally loved herself enough to demand respect. And that, more than anything that happened that night or in the years since, is the real story. The story of finding your strength when you thought you had nothing left. The story of standing up for yourself when everyone expects you to just forgive and forget. The story of protecting what's yours not with violence or revenge, but with boundaries and self-respect and the simple, radical act of saying no more. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here. And if you're facing your own Christmas moment, your own betrayal, your own impossible choice, please know this: you are stronger than you know. You deserve respect. And you have every right to protect what you've built. Turn off the lights if you have to. Change the locks if you must. Draw the line that needs to be drawn. Not because you're cruel, but because you're brave. Not because you've stopped loving, but because you've learned to love yourself too. That's my story. That's my truth. And I'm no longer afraid to stand in it.